I'll break the chains.
I'll break the chains.
Okay, now, a lot of times, you hear people kind of talk and make reference to what they want out of life, and sometimes they like to talk about who they are. A lot of times, we take it so far to even take on all the characteristics and the mannerisms of whatever group of people we feel like represents ourself. That's where you can. That's why you can have so many different groups of people, even within a race, insisting that they themselves are somehow different than the next person or entity, what have you. I think that when we come to this planet, with the intent to just manifest and presumably operate with a sort of glee, and an understanding that within that glee, someone else's glee may actually alter our being. Because we've identified in so much with this perceived reality, we are, I guess, if there is such a thing as taking it personal, I think that's what we've actually come to start doing. If all is light and all is energy, then in any way, everything else that forms from it is more or less just what we decide on and fits in whatever category that we decide best. So when we, and I mean we as the human race and offsprings thereof, mankind, humankind, things like that. We all springboard off the same sort of consciousness, especially nowadays. The only few that really haven't adapted to this way are those, I guess, living without technology, or more or less still living off nature. The idea that we are something that we are not. Could you hold for a minute? The idea that we are something and the idea that we are not is simply just a junction in which we can springboard into a sort of dismal place to where we feel like we are now. And it's kind of like we've made use of this apparatus we're calling a body. Okay, and so since we've just been springboarded in, and this is only by way of light now, understand that. Because what it goes back to is the whole, and I'm taking this from a standpoint that the only reason why we exist is simply because certain frequencies of energy actually were beamed down in a number of different angles and manifest themselves in order to actually create us. The symbiotic fluid, or all that stuff that we were actually spawned in our first school, with, in the womb of man, or in the woman, was actually being pulled and pushed upon by the moon. Okay, so that's what we're going off of. And so as we come into this being, and we take on this apparatus that's physical, we have this belief now that everything that is here has to have an effect on us. Okay, and if it doesn't, then we call ourselves improper. We say we're not right, especially if it's not in line with what a majority is actually on board with. I mean, even myself and my accusations about this society falls victim to the same thing, because ultimately the people create everything. Just like how government really is almost like reality. We're creating government, or we're under the impression that we're creating government. We have the power to dismantle and disfracture government based on natural law and the written law. Okay? And this is because we, the people, decide how it is we should live. However, when we let others tell us that that is not the case, or that it should be in another's hands, if we do not remember that there was such an ordeal between us that suggests that we, the people, are the power of government, of reality, then we will start to live in a reality that is not for the people, but more or less for certain people. You see? And this is the condition that has been handed to the average human being. Now, when we run into an issue sometimes, when we come across each other, and we look at each other, and we don't know what to expect, because we've been set up in a mind frame in which all of our resources are scarce, we wonder what the next man or the next woman or person wants or doesn't want, what they're willing to take, things like that. We're in a society now, especially if you are in the Americas, where it's about one-upping one another. You're wondering, how far is this going? Why is this person talking to me? And then the age that they're trying to instill in the individuals, it's an untrustworthiness that just floats around us. And this untrustworthiness, it shows when we can't even just have a decent conversation with each other simply because we're the opposite sex, and the other person might perceive a simple conversation as an individual trying to approach them in a certain way, and vice versa. And it's all because of the fact that we have these shells on. And these shells that we have on have the impression in our brains that are stimulated, or how you say, I'm sorry, not even stimulated, but more or less they are, basically they have been cued. And they've been cued in a way that, hey, if you see this, you need to respond this way. If you see this, you should respond this way. And this is all based on the patterns that you were exposed to throughout the vibratory frequency in your actual manifestation into the being that you are now, or growing up, or however you want to call it. You're rising to this particular plane now, the plane in which you can actually hear me, see me, and visualize all the things around you, is actually an interpretation of what you can unconsciously, and I mean not even can unconsciously, but are unconsciously aware of. However, if you chose to actually raise your own vibrations, then you understand that there are things in this reality that are not even so, but because of what we have been taught, because of how we've been cued to respond, they are real.